On a Tuesday afternoon in March 2023, the NELK Boys, Kyle Fergeard, Jesse Sebastiani, and Steve DeLeonardis walked into a recording studio for what they thought would be another routine podcast appearance. They'd done hundreds before. Built an empire doing it. $250 million in brand value. Millions of loyal fans. Partnerships with major corporations worth 8 figures annually. 47 minutes into that interview, Kyle made 5 offhand comments about their business practices. Nothing dramatic. No curse words. No wild stunts. Just 5 sentences about how they really ran their operation behind the scenes. Within 48 hours, everything collapsed. Anheuser-Busch terminated a $15 million sponsorship. DraftKings pulled a $22 million partnership. Their merchandise sales, which typically brought in $8 million monthly, dropped 60% in a single week. Half their staff of 47 employees resigned. Their stock value in the creator economy plummeted by an estimated $100 million. This is the story of how the NELK Boys accidentally destroyed their own empire with brutal honesty, and why the economic fallout reveals something dark about influencer economics that nobody wants to talk about. Because what they said wasn't illegal. It was just the truth. And sometimes the truth costs everything. Before we dive into exactly what was said and why it caused such financial chaos, hit that like button and subscribe to The Sleeping Economist. We uncover the economic stories you slept through, the financial disasters, corporate collapses, and money mysteries that shaped our world. Chapter 1. The Empire They Built. To understand what the NELK Boys lost, you need to understand what they built. And it wasn't just a YouTube channel. It was a vertically integrated media conglomerate disguised as frat boy pranks. Kyle Fergeard and Jesse Sebastiani started NELK, which stood for nothing. Just sounded cool in 2010 in Mississauga, Ontario. They filmed pranks, stupid ones. Coke prank on cops, fake employee prank, content that made your parents worry about your generation. But there was genius hidden in the chaos. By 2015, they'd figured something out that traditional media companies spent millions on consultants to understand. Young men aged 18 to 34 would watch anything that felt authentically rebellious. Not scripted rebellion, real rebellion. The kind where you genuinely weren't sure if someone was going to jail. Their growth exploded. By 2019, they had 6.5 million YouTube subscribers. But here's what made them different from other prank channels that flamed out. They understood they weren't in the content business. They were in the lifestyle business. They launched Full Send, a merchandise brand that sold $47 million worth of hoodies, hats, and accessories in 2020 alone. The logo, simple text saying, Full Send, became a uniform for a generation of young men who wanted to signal they lived without limits. The margins were incredible. $8 to manufacture a hoodie in Pakistan, $65 retail price in America. Then came Dad Hard Seltzer in 2021. This was the masterstroke. They weren't just influencers promoting someone else's alcohol. They owned the brand. They partnered with Draftline Ventures and launched a hard seltzer targeting exactly their demographic. First-year sales, $85 million. Second year, $130 million. Profit margins on alcohol? Roughly 40% after all costs. They started Full Send Podcast, bringing on controversial guests like Donald Trump, Joe Biden, and Dana White. Each episode got millions of views. More importantly, each episode was a 90-minute advertisement for Happy Dad, Full Send merch, and their lifestyle brand. They'd also launched a cryptocurrency called Sendex, NFT drops, and a subscription platform. Multiple revenue streams. By March 2023, conservative estimates put their brand value at $250 million. Kyle Fergeard personally was worth an estimated $75 million. Jesse Sebastiani, $60 million. Steve will do it, Dalianardis, $50 million. They had corporate partnerships with Anheuser-Busch, competitors buying shelf space from them, DraftKings, gambling partnerships, Fashion Nova, and 6 other major brands worth a combined $73 million annually. They weren't just YouTubers anymore. They were a media empire with 94 employees, offices in Los Angeles and Austin, a production studio, a distribution warehouse, and corporate lawyers. They'd transcended the platform. They'd won the creator economy game. And then Kyle decided to tell the truth. Chapter 2. The interview nobody expected. March 14th, 2023. The NELK Boys appeared on the Founders Mindset podcast, a relatively small show hosted by entrepreneur Derek Chun. Average views per episode, 40,000. Nothing major. The kind of interview they'd squeeze in between bigger appearances. The first 45 minutes were standard fare. Derek asked about their origin story, how they built their brand, what advice they'd give young entrepreneurs. Kyle and Jesse gave practiced answers, professional, polished. This was content they could do in their sleep. Then Derek asked a different question. A lot of young people look at your success and think they can replicate it. What do you think they don't understand about how you actually built this? It was meant to be an inspirational question, a chance to talk about hard work and persistence. Instead, Kyle Forgeard gave an honest answer. Here's what nobody tells you, Kyle said, leaning back in his chair. Our actual product has always been controversy. Not the pranks, not the merch, the controversy itself. Every time we got in trouble, our sales went up 30 to 40%. When we got banned from Instagram in 2019, best month we ever had. When YouTube demonetized us in 2020, we launched the subscription platform and made $2 million the first week. Jesse jumped in. We literally have a Google Doc where we track which controversies generate the most revenue. We A/B test outrage. If something pisses people off, but not enough to actually hurt us legally, that's the sweet spot. Kyle continued. Happy, Dad? We didn't invent a better seltzer. We created a drink that parents and health people would criticize. Every article calling us irresponsible? Free marketing to exactly the people who want to drink what their parents hate. We've spent $180,000 paying publicists to plant negative stories about us in the right outlets. The room went quiet. Derek looked uncomfortable, but Kyle kept going. And the podcast guests, Trump, Biden, whoever, we don't book them because we care about politics. We book whoever will generate the most social media arguments. More arguments equals more people checking out who we are, equals more people buying our stuff. It's a funnel. Outrage at the top, revenue at the bottom. 5 sentences, maybe 90 seconds of speaking. Steve, sitting next to them, looked like he wanted to stop Kyle from talking. Jesse looked surprised his business partner was saying this publicly. Kyle finished. Anyone trying to copy us without understanding that? They'll fail. Because they think they're in the entertainment business. We're in the weaponized attention business. The interview continued another 15 minutes. They talked about other things. But those 5 sentences, that confession of their actual business model, were already being clipped and shared. The economic bomb had been planted. The timer was ticking. Chapter 3. The 48-hour collapse. The interview posted Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. Pacific. By noon, a clip titled, NELK Boys Admit They Manufacture Controversy for Profit had 200,000 views on Twitter. By 6 p.m., it had 2 million. But it wasn't their fans sharing it. It was journalists, media critics, and most dangerously, corporate social responsibility departments at Fortune 500 companies. Thursday, 10:17 a.m., Anheuser-Busch's PR team sent an email to NELK's management. The subject line, immediate partnership review required. The email was clinical. Recent public statements regarding the intentional manufacturing of controversy and negative publicity as a business strategy are fundamentally incompatible with Anheuser-Busch's brand values and corporate ethics guidelines. We are suspending all promotional activities effective immediately pending legal review of contract termination clauses. Translation: the $15 million deal where Anheuser-Busch had agreed to give Happy Dad premium shelf space in 12,000 retail locations was dead. Thursday, 2:43 p.m. DraftKings followed. Their partnership, worth $22 million over 3 years, had made the NELK Boys ambassadors for responsible gambling. The irony was thick. Their statement: we partner with creators who demonstrate authentic values alignment. The recent admission of deliberately manufacturing controversy for financial gain violates Section 4.3 of our brand ambassador agreement regarding authentic representation. But the real damage was happening where nobody could see it, in corporate Slack channels and email chains. Fashion Nova's marketing team. If they're openly admitting to manipulating public perception for profit, how do we know they're not manipulating their audience engagement numbers? Can we trust any of their metrics? A DraftKings executive to their legal team. If they're admitting to intentionally courting controversy, are we liable for the next controversy they manufacture? What if someone gets hurt at one of their events? The perception shifted instantly. Before the interview, the NELK Boys were seen as successful but edgy creators. After the interview, they were seen as manipulative grifters who'd accidentally admitted the game. Friday morning, the merchandise numbers told the story. Daily sales Thursday, $89,000. Daily sales Friday, $34,000. A 62% drop in 24 hours. Happy Dad distributors started calling. Bar owners in college towns, their core market, were pulling the product, not because of quality, because they didn't want to be associated with what was now being called exploitation marketing. By Friday afternoon, half the corporate partnerships were suspended or under review. Combined value, $73 million annually. The NELK Boys had lost the equivalent of $6 million per month in guaranteed revenue. But the real question wasn't what they'd lost. It was why admitting the truth had destroyed them. Because technically, they hadn't done anything illegal. They just said the quiet part loud. Chapter 4. The Human Cost, Saturday, March 18th. The NELK Boys' Los Angeles office. Normally on weekends, the place would be empty. Today, it was full of panicked employees. Sarah Chun, their director of brand partnerships, the person responsible for maintaining those now collapsing corporate deals, walked in at 7 a.m. to find her desk covered in termination notices from sponsors. She'd spent 3 years building these relationships, 48 hours to watch them evaporate. She resigned by noon. In her exit email, I can't represent a brand that admits it's built on manipulation. More importantly, I can't tell potential partners that we operate with integrity when our founders publicly stated we don't. 23 employees followed her out the door over the next week, not all of them for ethical reasons. Some because they'd been promised stock options in a company that was now worth drastically less. Some because they realized the business model wasn't sustainable if it required secrecy to function. The employee turnover cost was immediate and measurable. Average cost to replace a trained employee in a media company, $47,000, recruiting, training, lost productivity. 23 employees, $1.08 million in replacement costs. But they couldn't replace them yet because nobody wanted to join a sinking ship. The merchandise warehouse in Nevada reported a different crisis: returns. Their return rate normally sat at 4%, pretty standard for online apparel. The week after the interview, 23% return rate. Thousands of young men who'd proudly worn full send hoodies now felt embarrassed. They felt tricked. The merch went from status symbol to scarlet letter overnight. Full Send had $4.2 million worth of inventory in that warehouse. With sales down 60% and returns up 500%, they were looking at a liquidity crisis. They'd have to discount heavily to move product, which would damage the brand further. Happy Dad faced worse. Bars and liquor stores have limited shelf space. When a product stops moving, it gets replaced fast. By the end of March, Happy Dad had lost placement in 3,400 retail locations. Each location represented an average of $840 in monthly sales. That's $2.85 million in monthly revenue gone. The production costs didn't stop though. They'd already ordered ingredients and cans for Q2 production based on projected growth. $8.6 million worth of supplies for a product that was now declining. They couldn't cancel the orders without penalty. They had to absorb the cost. Steve will do it, DeLeonardis, who'd been silent during the controversial interview, posted an Instagram story. Sometimes I wish we just kept doing pranks. It was deleted 20 minutes later, but screenshots lived forever. The human cost wasn't just money. It was belief. Employees who'd believed they were building something meaningful realized they'd been building an outrage machine. Fans who'd believed the NELK Boys were authentically rebellious realized they'd been marks in a sophisticated con. Chapter 5. The Long Shadow. By June 2023, the full financial picture became clear, and it was devastating. Total revenue 2022, $287 million across all ventures. Projected revenue 2023 before the interview, $340 million. Actual revenue 2023 after the interview, $168 million. The interview cost them $172 million in a single fiscal year. But the more interesting number was brand valuation. Before the interview, private equity firms had approached the NELK Boys about acquisition offers ranging from $220 to $280 million. After the interview, those conversations died. By October 2023, one pay firm that had previously offered $240 million came back with a revised offer, $85 million. The empire hadn't just shrunk. It had been fundamentally revalued. Because what investors realized was dark. The NELK Boys' business model only worked if audiences didn't know it was a business model. Once the manipulation was revealed, the magic disappeared. You can't monetize authentic rebellion once people know the rebellion is manufactured. Happy Dad sales stabilized but never recovered. 2023 revenue, $94 million, down from $130 million in 2022. But worse, their growth trajectory died. In startup valuations, growth potential matters more than current revenue. Happy Dad went from a brand that could potentially compete with White Claw to a cautionary tale. The full Send merch line had to rebrand. They couldn't legally change the name without abandoning trademark equity, so they tried to reposition. Full Send, live your own way. The new tagline felt desperate. Sales remained 40% below pre-interview levels throughout 2023. The podcast survived but changed. They couldn't book major controversial guests anymore because those guest managers didn't want association with manufactured outrage. The show became less interesting. Views declined. Average episode views in 2022, 2.4 million. Average episode views late 2023, 890,000. Kyle Forgeard's personal net worth dropped from an estimated $75 million to $31 million. Not because he spent money, but because his ownership stake in devalued companies was now worth less. Paper losses are still losses. But something else happened that nobody predicted. Copycat honesty. Other influencer brands, trying to distance themselves from the NELK controversy, started overcorrecting. They made big proclamations about authentic values and transparent business practices. Some of it was genuine. Most of it was just a new form of the same manipulation. The influencer economy learned the lesson. Be manipulative, but never admit you're being manipulative. The NELK Boys' mistake wasn't the manipulation. It was the confession. By December 2023, the NELK Boys were still operating. still making content, still selling products. But they'd gone from conquerors of the creator economy to a cautionary tale taught in business school case studies. The total cost of 5 sentences? Conservative estimate, $180 million in value destruction over 18 months. And the bleeding hadn't stopped. Chapter 6, The Economics of Authenticity. So what's the lesson here? Because this isn't really a story about the NELK Boys. It's a story about the creator economy's original sin. The modern influencer business model is built on a lie that what you're seeing is authentic, spontaneous, real, but it's not. It's a product, carefully crafted, A/B tested, and optimized for engagement metrics that translate to revenue. The entire industry runs on audiences not quite realizing their targets in a marketing campaign. The NELK Boys' only mistake was saying it out loud. Think about it economically. Traditional advertising is honest about being advertising. When you see a Coca-Cola commercial, you know you're being marketed to. You discount the message accordingly. Your psychological defenses are up. Influencer marketing works because those defenses are down. When your favorite creator recommends a product, you process it as a friend's recommendation, not an advertisement. Even though the creator was paid $50,000 for that 30-second mention. That psychological misclassification is worth billions of dollars annually to brands. The Federal Trade Commission has tried to regulate this with disclosure requirements. Influencers must say #ad or #sponsored. But research shows these disclosures are largely ineffective. Audiences see them but don't cognitively process them the same way they process traditional ad disclaimers. What the NELK Boys revealed was the next level. Not just that the recommendations are paid, but that the entire personality is a business strategy. The controversies aren't spontaneous. They're manufactured in Google Docs and scheduled like product launches. The rebellious lifestyle isn't authentic. It's a brand identity designed to sell $65 hoodies. This revelation is economically catastrophic because it breaks the fundamental value proposition. Here's the darker lesson. Honesty is expensive in the creator economy. The NELK Boys lost $180 million by telling the truth about their business model. Every other influencer watched and learned. Be authentic seeming, but never actually authentic about the business mechanics. For you as a viewer and consumer, the lesson is simple. Every piece of content you consume from a monetized creator has been engineered for a business outcome. Every controversy, every opinion, every authentic moment has been filtered through the question, will this make us money? The NELK Boys didn't destroy their empire through dishonesty. They destroyed it through the most expensive form of honesty, accidentally revealing that the emperor has no clothes. If stories like this, where we uncover the economic events that shaped our world while most people weren't paying attention, fascinate you, please like this video and subscribe to the channel because we're just getting started with these financial stories.